Hmm. Okay, so today we have a good number of people here, Tushita, and two brave people online. I think more will join soon. Jiteshji, I don't know you, so welcome, whoever you are. Thank you very much. So let's all develop a sense of good posture, good head and shoulders, as some people say. We're not going to slouch. We're not going to sit in a sort of twisted manner. We'll sit so that we can proclaim, and fulfill the aspiration that is consonant with Mahayana, with the great vehicle. So great vehicle Buddhism, so-called great, because the aspiration is very vast. What is the aspiration? The aspiration is no less than fulfilling our human potential completely. What is our human potential? To become fully awakened. Fully awakened. What does it mean to be fully awakened in this context? It means to have purified the mind of all of its distortions, all of its distorted perceptions, all of its karmic baggage, and not only purified, but also accumulated, although this is a very materialistic kind of word, but it's accumulated or generated all good qualities. What do we mean by good qualities? We mean, on the one hand, love and compassion, unlimited love and compassion for everybody, every being in the universe, as well as wisdom, understanding the nature of things. And they're very much connected, this wisdom and this compassion, like wings of a great bird. So that is the meaning of Mahayana, to fulfill one's potential. And what do Buddhas do? What do people who have fulfilled their potential do? Well, quite spontaneously, they engage in benefiting countless sentient beings. Sentient being definition being somebody who's not yet awakened. So the awakened beings engage in benefiting others, leading them to full awakening. So what's that got to do with the posture that we're talking about? Well, the posture is reminding us that we cannot embark on this path, if you like, path not being some kind of solid set route like a road that we're familiar with, but our practice of the teachings, that's the path, our understanding and practice of the teachings. We cannot embark on that properly if we lack self-confidence on the one hand and genuine open-heartedness on the other. So our posture is reflecting that. Upright, but also open. It's got a strength to it, but there's also a kindness and a gentleness in the posture. But it's kind of, you could say, brimming with self-confidence, because we need that. Just to help ourselves, we need some confidence. So if we're going to genuinely be of benefit to many beings, imagine we need tremendous self-confidence. Without, of course, being arrogant, but we need self-confidence. We need trust. Trust in ourselves, and very importantly, trust in the basic goodness in others. This is a very important, you could say, discovery of the Buddha, that we all have that potential. We all have the Buddha nature. We can all wake up completely. It is not some elite only who can wake up. Even a mass murderer has the Buddha nature, in the worst torturer has the Buddha nature, but is just temporarily submerged by the distorted, destructive emotions. That's all. That is not the deepest nature of that being. So whether you're a saint or you consider yourself a sinner, we all have the Buddha nature, which is not some kind of totally mysterious thing. It is the, you could say, primordial, most subtle, stainless nature of our own minds, like a buried treasure, which we would never think of digging up because we're so preoccupied with a lot of superficial nonsense. But there is a buried treasure awaiting all of us, every single one of us, including mosquitoes and snakes and all the rest. But they will not be able to uncover that treasure as mosquitoes or snakes. They'll need to be human beings. So therefore, we regard this human incarnation as extremely extraordinary and fleeting and impermanent, and therefore we need to really take advantage of it before we die, or before we become crippled or in some way unable to practice and understand the teachings. So since injury and death can come anytime, we don't know when, we need to remember that and regard every day as in some way important. So we sit like a warrior, a spiritual warrior, upright. So let the body be upright, but the shoulders level, head tilted slightly forwards to relieve tension in the neck. Arms by the side of the body, but slight gaps so that air can circulate. And several options. With the eyes, we can keep them slightly open to let in some light. That is quite good. But if that's really very distracting for you, especially as a beginner, then eyes closed is okay. But just be on the lookout for drowsiness. And however pleasant and drowsy we may feel, that is to be avoided because it's not meditation. It is not helping us to develop awareness. It's helping us become sleepy. So we have to be aware of that. But on the other hand, if our eyes are open and we get distracted or excited about something, then we need to be aware of that too and avoid that. So in all these matters, there's a sense of balance. And critically, I think, something which can benefit all of us all the time, we need to just let go and relax a little bit and not be so uptight. We don't need to be trying too hard. We're not performing monkeys or bears. We don't have to perform. We can relax. But here, the relaxation is allied with attentiveness. That's very important. So we can be as still as we can as we sit. We can be relaxed, again, as much as can be. It's impossible to be totally relaxed at the moment. And then we need to be awake, alert, attentive, obviously, aware. Because this, what we're doing first is actually beginning to understand and make friends with ourselves. And you can't make friends with yourself or with anybody if you don't slow down and pay attention. If we're rushing around, we can't make friends with anybody. And it's very important to make friends with ourselves first, because this mind is something we'll never let go of. It will never extinguish itself. So we'd better learn about it and make friends with it now. And like a very good, careful archaeologist, we need to uncover the deepest nature, the treasure of the Buddha nature. And this will be our best friend forever, forever. And which will never degenerate. Unlike ordinary friendships, which, however wonderful, will have to end at some time. But the Buddha nature never ends, never comes to an end. Simply because that's its nature. It was not invented by Lord Buddha. Simply uncovered, discovered. So that's the very good news. The not so good news is that right now we are extremely confused, distracted, busy. On the one hand, we want a lot of things. On the other hand, we want to push away and not be involved with certain things. We have a lot of likes and dislikes. So in this session, we'll be working with that as we look at immeasurable equanimity. But first, we can continue a little bit more with the motivation. All of this so far has been connected with preparation, motivation, which is of critical importance. In Mahayana practice, we don't just dive in to the practice without preparation. That's a bit foolish. It's like, athletes prepare, they limber up, they stretch their bodies and warm up before they engage in their sports, even if they're really top-notch sports people. They don't just get to the venue and start performing. So this is a very essential spiritual warm-up. Important for new people also to recognize. So why are we sitting here? Well, partly out of understanding that we do have potential we can tap, and also, of course, due to the fact that we are social animals and that we are connected with others, and that we have been the recipients, is it not, of other people's kindness ever since we were in the mother's womb, or even before, possibly. Of course, before in the sense of previous lives, but what I'm saying is the same thing we said yesterday, that, for example, parents could be already preparing for the child that they want, already having a kind of kindness and consideration even before the child is conceived. And then, of course, when we're conceived and in the mother's womb, the mother has to behave in certain ways and to avoid harm to the child, to the fetus. And then, of course, birth with its dangers and trauma and pain, that is all gone through by the mother. And of course, the father can join in the process, the anxiety, the care, whatever. And then since that day to this day, however old we are, every single day of our life, and of course you can question this, you don't have to accept what I'm saying. I'm saying that from the day since we were born up to today, every single day we've depended on others in one way or another, on the kindness of others, the help of others. Just spend a few moments allowing that to sink in, because sometimes we get very kind of caught up with ourselves and how clever we are, and we somehow forget our dependency in one way what we owe others, how much we've relied on other people, and of course animals too. Countless insects life on Earth depends on. Even as vegetarians, we may be proud of being vegetarian, but in the production of rice, for example, so much water is used and so many insects drown. So we cannot say that our vegetarianism is not causing any harm to living beings. It is. So whatever we do, we are dependent on others, and other beings given up their life for us to be able to eat even one mouthful of rice. So then the argument is, if this is the case, how can I possibly ignore others and not be or try to benefit them? How could that possibly arise? You know, how selfish can I be? You know, to neglect others is something very strange, very twisted somehow. So reflect on this. Are the kindness of others, kindness of people we don't even know, kindness in the sense without them, we don't survive. And it could be a coffee grower in South America, or it could be a rice planter in Tamil Nadu, whatever it is. A farmer here, a farmer there, transporter somewhere, shopkeeper, we depend on all of them. And all these beings, if we check, if we step outside our own bubble and just check, every single being has their own problems, dissatisfaction, their worries, their particular brand or style of suffering, which may be slightly different from somebody else's, but we all have our own miseries. And from a Buddhist perspective, we're all suffering in one way or another. There is unsatisfactoriness so long as we are within the grip of ignorance and lack of wisdom and compassion. So it's a very powerful situation, isn't it? Here we are, not knowing how long we're going to last. We have Buddha potential. We depend on others. Others are in a state of suffering. They've been so kind to me. It's obvious what has to be done. The conclusion is somehow obvious. One has to be of some benefit. One has to work for the welfare of all beings. And by the way, those beings who do actually engage in such activity do say that for them, real happiness in life does start when one gives oneself to others, works for others. That's when real happiness starts. Solely being preoccupied with oneself, they seem to be saying, is fraught with danger, with anxiety, with a lot of anxiety and expectation and frustration. One could think about that, reflect on that in your own life, when you have been worried and preoccupied with your own problems, so many problems, this, that, and when can I do this? When can that happen? When we're preoccupied with our own situation and our own happiness or unhappiness, then how does that feel? And contrast it with moments when we may have been totally focused on others, their problems, how to help them. Without so much consideration for, what's in it for me. Then how does that feel? Of course, we have to be careful here, and we've somehow jumped ahead because this is the motivation. It's an aspiration. We're not there yet. And as we know, for many of us, there is such a lack of sort of self-trust and a sense of one's own worthiness that, as we've been discussing the last month or so, we do need to focus on properly caring and making friends with ourselves first, before we presume to be of much benefit to others. So of course, that is understood. We're not trying to escape from ourselves or neglect ourselves in order to benefit others. Not like that. We could say we have to practice with ourselves first. So anyway, what we're going to reflect on today is connected with all of this, because we're going to be reflecting on the equanimity and the aspect of equanimity especially that is connected with the equality of self and others, which becomes a very important meditation throughout the course of one's Mahayana practice. The point being that one cannot feel genuine love and compassion for people if we somehow feel that they are totally different from me and they're totally different from the people I love the most, So we have to have a sense of how we are all in the same kind of situation, really, basically. So how do we do this? There could be different methods, but one method that is very useful and which is gone into in great detail in something we looked at a few years ago during our Zoom sessions, and that is the method that Jeffrey Hopkins speaks about in a very wonderful book called A Truthful Heart. So we'll look at that. And he mentions, before going into this practice, how, you see, if we want to harm somebody, if we want to harm someone or consider someone an enemy, we have to somehow dehumanize them. We have to feel that they are somehow different from me and my friends. And he gave, at that time, quite bravely, I thought, he gave the example of Saddam Hussein and how if we want to get after and kill Saddam Hussein, you have to kind of reduce him to the level of what he called a mad dog. You know, you have to think this guy is certainly not like me and my friends. So therefore, it's okay to go after him and kill him. I mean, that kind of idea. And it could be work out on a local level. You may feel it's perfectly fine to not like or to even abuse or tell stories about someone behind their back because you don't like them. And somehow there's that sense that one has not considered how they are actually the same in many ways as you and your best friend. So how are they the same? Okay. So here we have to come down to the level of feeling. Let's take a very basic Buddhist premise that one of the most important factors of a person that make up a person, one of the 5 aggregates actually, which one of the ways of discussing a person, the mind and body combination, one of the main factors is feelings. Now, to put it simply, we have pleasant feelings, right? We have unpleasant feelings, physical and mental, and we have neutral feelings. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to reflect on how the people, we'll keep it to human beings right now, the human beings whom you and I right now consider as someone we love or a friend, and then some people we really don't like at all, we feel quite averse to them. And then the third majority category, people we don't know, right? Strangers, right? So there are these 3 categories of people, basically. And there are 3 categories of feelings: pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Our friends make us generally feel pleasant. That's why we consider them friends. People we don't like, so-called enemies, we don't like because they give rise to unpleasant feelings, sensations, and if they've been unkind physically, painful physical sensations. And neutral people, neutral, we don't care really. And the problem with that is that with the pleasant sensations, we develop attachment, we want more, we crave, we get attached. With the unpleasant, we feel aggression and aversion, we want to push them away, whatever creates those unpleasant feelings, sensations. And with neutral people, we're indifferent, we're ignorant, we just couldn't care less. So in what we're going to do now, we're going to, first of all, we have to make it very clear to ourselves that feelings and sensations are very primary for us. We're not talking theory at all. This is not theoretical now, what we're discussing. It's very, very nitty-gritty experiential. So now, first of all, what I want us all to do is to very simply remember, bring to mind a pleasant sensation or feeling you have had in the last few days, or even today. And how does it feel to have a pleasant sensation or feeling? It could be mental, physical, could be both, as a result of interaction with people or with certain kind of food or conversation, whatever it is, or beautiful sights, sounds, smells, taste, touch, anything, memory. Remember something that was very pleasant for you. And then I'll spend a little while on that, and then spend some time on something that was unpleasant for you. Really, it was not nice, physically, mentally. And then if you can, try to think of something neutral, a neutral situation. Maybe, I don't know, putting on your sweater or jacket or shirt today, it was neither that pleasant or unpleasant, it was kind of neutral. Or if you're not too attached to your, I don't know, your hair, then combing your hair was just kind of neutral. It wasn't something you were really that pleasant or unpleasant, whatever. You choose. So spend some time on this. Pleasant sensation, unpleasant sensation or feeling, and maybe the stronger it is, the better, in a sense, because you felt it. It was something was happening to you. In that sense, it was real. Okay, so those three things. Reflect on that. The mind wanders, as it will do, possibly. Bring it back. Bring it back to the topic. Don't allow it to spin off wherever it wants. That can become a very repetitive habit. And if you're quite brave, imaginative, brave, then remember how you felt when someone was really pretty unkind to you, said some harsh words to you, really hurt you with their speech. How did that feel? Or, neglected you in some way and made you feel unhappy. How does that feel? And then recall when somebody was very kind to you in whatever way, words, gestures, whatever. How did you feel when somebody was very kind to you? Did something you really liked? How does that feel? Mentally, physically? And then neutral. Can you remember any neutral phases? Of course, they must come up again and again and again during the day. And maybe we're not aware of them so much. We only recollect the highs and the lows. But there must be so many neutral experiences. Okay, so this is just the first part. This is the first part. We're trying to locate and understand the centrality of feeling, sensation in our lives. It's totally something we all experience. Unless we're in a coma or something, we all experience these things. Now, what we're going to try and do now is see how this is absolutely the same, or we're going to check if it's the same for others. So first take someone you are very close to right now, and someone whom you may know quite well, or a little bit anyway. So are there situations that you know of which make that person have pleasant feelings, sensations, emotions? Do they have pleasant, unpleasant in their life? Is it real for them as real as it is for you, your best friend? And of course, the basic thing, like when you're hungry or thirsty, does your friend feel the same way? When they're hungry or thirsty, do you think they have the same, similar kind of sensations? Or when they've eaten too much? Or when they're upset? Is upset pretty much the same for them as it is for you, or not? What do you think? Are they happy like you sometimes? When you feel happiness, do you think they feel happiness also? Do they have experiences of happiness? Okay, so it's pretty easy with the friend, isn't it? The best friend. That's easy. Pretty easy. How about someone whom you know, but not really your best friend or anything, but just someone you know? It's kind of okay, the relationship. They're certainly not neutral completely, and they're not certainly not any kind of person you dislike. Someone who's kind of friend, borderline friend, more on the side of friend than neutral. How about them? Do you think they have pleasant, unpleasant sensations, emotions, feelings? Same as you and your best friend? What do you think? Or are they different? Think they have any less stuff going on for them than you and your friend, your best friend? What do you think? Think of a real person. No? This is not theoretical, remember. Think of a real person. You think they get upset when people are not nice to them? They're happy when certain things happen, certain sensations, feelings. You know, when these people, when that person feels cold, do they feel the same as you do? They want to put on something warm. What do you think? Are they really that different from you or your best friend? Now take, and this is perhaps the most challenging in some ways, or quite challenging. Take somebody you see regularly, but they you really don't know them. You don't know their name even, but you may pass them here and there. They may be a guard, they may be a shopkeeper, something. Not a shop you go into a lot, perhaps, but there's someone you recognize their face, possibly, but they're kind of a stranger, really. They're kind of stranger. And usually they're just in the kind of the background of our awareness, what may be referred to as just a kind of a shape and a color in the background, whom occasionally one may approach and, buy something from them or whatever. So what about this person, whom you don't know, whose name you don't know? You know almost nothing about this person. Do they have pleasant, unpleasant sensations, feelings? Do they sometimes laugh? Do they sometimes cry? Or feel very unhappy at certain situations? What do you think? Do they get hungry, thirsty, unhappy, lonely, excited, elated, joyful, all the rest? I mean, they are a human being, right? Even though for us, they're just some kind of background. And we may never really even look at them because we're so preoccupied with ourselves and our smartphones, we may never really look at them. But surely they're all just the same as our best friends, aren't they? In respect of experience, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. What do you think? Or are they different? Do they want happiness and not want suffering? Just like you, just like your best friend, or not? Hmm. Now take someone very neutral, in the sense, and this is more we have to practice in action, because we can't really bring to our, or maybe you can, maybe you can remember a face from today, or a person you've never seen before, but you can remember a face of someone, man, woman, child, whatever, wherever it was, in the metro, in the street, in a restaurant, whatever. Can you remember a face? Okay, so that person is neutral, right? Right now for us, that's a very neutral person, part of the background, part of the backdrop to our precious little lives, okay? So what about that person? Are they like you and me and our best friends? They have sensations, feelings, pleasant, unpleasant? Do they become happy when people are kind to them and unhappy in other situations? And of course, it might also be quite powerful for some people to consider, say, a stray dog or something like that, Definitely a kind of a stranger. You don't know them. They may have a name, but you don't know the name of that dog. Does that dog want happiness, not want suffering? The dog with mange that has dug a little hole in the ground to lie down in and be safe. Does that being want to be happy, not want to suffer? Hmm. You need to stand or stretch or take a break, do that for a few minutes without getting totally distracted if possible. Okay. So just maybe 5 more minutes, and then we'll have some discussion. So now, of course, we need to consider the third category of beings. We looked briefly, and of course, this meditation can be done much more deeply. And it's a great practice to do when we're outside with a lot of people, different people. The third category is people really we don't like. So I wouldn't recommend you take somebody you hate, but if in case there is such a person that you really, really dislike a great deal, take someone you slightly dislike for whatever reason. Okay? A real person. And if there's nobody in the world you slightly dislike, then of course you don't need to do this meditation. But you might find somebody. A politician or somebody, okay? Doesn't have to be somebody you personally know. So choose that person, have their image in front of you, make sure it's not a theoretical person, not a robot. So what about this person who annoys you, who may have harmed you, may have said nasty things to you or about you? What about that person? Do they have feelings, sensations, pleasant, unpleasant? Have they had suffering? Do they have people in their life who, I don't know, get sick, die, makes them unhappy? Do they have some happy experiences? When people are kind to them, and of course, just because we don't like them doesn't mean other people, everybody doesn't like them. There are some people who like them, hopefully. And do they feel happiness sometimes? Do they have, when they're really hungry and they eat something, don't they feel pleasant, pleasure? Just like you and me and our best friends. And the neutral person. But of course, on a practical note, one of the ways to make people we don't like, or people who don't like us, one of the ways to make them friendly with us is to give them something that makes them happy. Do something that potentially could give them a pleasant sensation, pleasant feeling. Anything. Kind word, a gift, or in some cases it might need an apology, whatever. Of course, in some cases it wouldn't work at all. It's not appropriate. We can't all be sure that our letters to certain politicians will be read. Anyway, the point is we can make people who we don't like for some reason, we could change that situation. But that's another thing. We're not really discussing that here. We're trying to figure out if my reality is shared by other people in that basic sense of wanting happiness, not wanting suffering, and having pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral sensations and feelings. Because if it's not the case, then there is no proper foundation for equanimity. If we are all so very different, that some people might want to suffer, not want happiness, not have pleasant, unpleasant, neutral sensations. If there are such beings, then this equanimity is a nonsense. So remembering Jeffrey Hopkins' advice that if you have good imagination, then you can be a good meditator. Because we have to, with people we don't know, you see, at all, we have to imagine what it's like to be them. Imagine what happens in their lives. And of course, our imagination is based on some kind of reason. It's based on what we experience, what our friends experience. But they have obviously very similar feelings and sensations. You know, maybe we can afford to eat something very expensive that makes us happy, but something cheap that they eat also can make them happy, give them a similar sensation of happiness or satisfaction. So the causes, conditions can be slightly different, but the basic reality of pleasant, unpleasant, does that not hold for everybody? So then we could ask ourselves if this, and you know, we may not be convinced yet, but we have to do it more, the meditation. But then we can ask ourselves, if this is the case, then how come I'm so important? You know, me and my friends, how come they're so important? You know, the most important. You know, isn't everybody important in their own way? Everybody is the same, wishing to be happy, not wanting to suffer. Doesn't that make everybody incredibly similar, equal? Equality is such a big issue in this world. And of course, inequality is there, but this is one situation, one way of looking at things where everybody is equal. Where the worst criminal and the, you know, the kindest person, they're the same. So Shantideva says, how come I'm so important, you know, other people not important? How come their happiness is somehow not as important as my happiness, you know? Just as I take care of myself, he says, in the same way I should take care of others. Because we are all, he says, limbs of life. We are all limbs of life, the tree of life. So I should not discriminate so harshly and neglect some people completely and behave harshly towards some and in a very attached, grasping manner towards others. That is totally ignorant way to behave. And it leads to unhappiness, leads to tremendous pain. Because once we dehumanize the other person and make them into just a mad dog, who's not the same as me and my friend, then we can do anything to that person. And we won't think that we're doing anything that wrong because we've dehumanized them, stripped them of what it is to be a human being. And what it is to be human is what we're saying at this basic level, wanting happiness, not wanting suffering, having pleasant, unpleasant sensations and feelings. So if we continue to think that some people deserve happiness more than others and let some people suffer more than others, then we need to employ reason to see how that is very biased. That is a very hypocritical way of thinking. It is basically wrong. It goes against reality. Okay, folks, enough meditation, reflection for one day, right? So let's, if you want some discussion, it's possible. I hope some of that made sense. And the great thing about it is we can do it all the time, everywhere, especially when we're out and about and we pass somebody in the street. There can be that thought, I mean, okay, all right. Does this person want happiness, not want suffering? Do they have feelings like me? Unhappy, happy, pleasant, unpleasant? What's going on with them? Is it the same as what happens with me? So we can continue doing this. And the reason Jeffrey Hopkins adopted and really practiced and went into this meditation and developed it as part of his main practice initially and wrote about it in the book is because he was the translator for the Dalai Lama. And when the Dalai Lama went to the West the first time, especially, every talk he started with that. All beings want happiness, don't want suffering. And Jeffrey was thinking, that's so basic. Why is he saying something so simple that even a child can understand? But actually, if we reflect on it and meditate on it, don't you think it's quite powerful? Can be quite powerful to think this way? Because it's not theory, you see. It sounds like theory. The Dalai Lama gets up and there's an audience. Everyone wants to be happy. Nobody wants to suffer. Yeah. What's so intelligent about that? All these PhD people are thinking, what's so brilliant about that? But then, of course, we're all behaving in a biased way in our lives. And some people we don't care about at all. We neglect them. Why? Because we're not really thinking about this based on our own experience. We're not relating our experience to other people's experience. Somehow I'm special. Me and my friends, we're special. We have feelings, we have happiness and unhappiness. Other people, well, don't know, who cares? Maybe, but we haven't really gone into it. Especially with people we don't like, we're happy when they're unhappy. We can even go to that extent. And that's it. Actually, it's human mind is very interesting. We can actually be a little satisfied sometimes, even when our friend fails something. There's a satisfaction there that they're not doing something better than us or, as well as us. There's a word for that in German, right? Is there Schadenfreude or something? Yeah. There's this satisfaction at other people's discomfort, even if there's someone that we know and even like in some ways, but sometimes it's good when they fail and they're having a hard time. Yeah, it feels okay. And maybe that shows up our own impoverishment and sense of envy, competitiveness. One would rather that oneself was having more happiness and less suffering than even your friends. And this is discussion time, folks. And there I am talking again. Did that make sense? Any of it? So even the person you want to strangle in front of you in the traffic, okay, you can have that brief sensation of wanting to strangle them, but then you think, okay, a human being like me, they're also suffering in this traffic, same as me. not wanting suffering, wanting happiness. They want to get home and just relax and eat and watch TV or whatever they do. You know? They don't want to be in this traffic. They're not driving in front of you because they're happy, or they're deliberately trying to annoy you. They're trying to get home quickly, like you. You know? So that kind of thinking is, I think, useful. But we're so uptight, we often don't bother to reflect in that way. We're just uptight. They're so, like a coiled spring, anything makes us unhappy and react with aggression. Yes.
It's okay to be competitive and try and compete, because that's something that's inherent.
What do you think?
Sometimes you tend to compare yourself with others.
Yeah. Is it good to compete, is the question, and compare? So what do you folks think?
I feel in a positive way, it's not bad.
What would be a positive way of
Positive
competing
way
or
in
comparing?
terms of the outcome of that activity to be something for betterment of yourself or you know, so those two people are competing. Good for both of them to have a better outcome.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
So sometimes being competitive can be looked upon as a positive way.
Yeah, it could. For sure. For
in a
sure.
negative way.
I think comparing can be a problem sometimes because if one has already either arrogant, a very arrogant, bloated attitude, or more likely, usually a lack of self-worth, then comparing oneself with others may be devastating. You can begin to feel, I mean, you can be on a meditation course or something and think everybody else is meditating properly and I'm the only person who's not, Or you could be thinking that, these people are much more, self-assured and intelligent than me, whatever, some inner narrative, keeps on going round and round. So in that sense, comparing and competition as it's used in modern education could be, I think, very, very, very devastating. Because then teacher often is kinder or shows more appreciation for those who are doing better, right? Doing better meaning getting better marks. Doesn't mean that they are human beings who will be better able to live happily later or be kinder to others, whatever. But if you get better marks, and one has seen this. I've seen this in the school we're running in Bihar. Somehow up to the 8th class or so, there's a kind of a innocence and brightness in children and happiness. As soon as the exam fever takes over, things seem to change. And they lose some kind of spontaneity, and there's so much tension and competitiveness around exams, which must be also exacerbated by their parents' input. Yeah. Do you find this? You're a teacher. Do you find this?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you that in a way we dehumanize the children.
Yes.
And we make them like digits. So you have to, so I asked my students, what do you wish? And they all wanted to stand first in the class, but not all of them can stand. And then that competition within them, I wonder if they have that competition spirit, or is it something that we as adults dehumanize them into?
Yeah. So Nilashaji is saying, she sees that in her children, and she's wondering if people, I could hardly hear myself, Ajirji. So you in Australia, I can imagine, and it's very late. Thanks for being with us. Ajirji's in Australia. I think, I don't think they've done tests on very young children, and they're not competitive, very young, like really young. They're much more cooperative. And somehow the competitiveness, I mean, I'm not saying they're not at all competitive. That would be foolish, because of course, kids are competitive to some extent. But when they're really very, very young, infants, there's more, it is said, some kind of reflex towards being more nurturing, or I don't know. The competitiveness comes later, or at least the negative competitiveness. Because in a way, being slightly competitive is fine. It can be like a game, like playful. Even between adults, being competitive could be a very good-natured exercise rather than, something like aggressive, It could be gentle, it could be playful. But I think what I've seen with the children at the schools, it can really make them very unhappy for a long time. And then if they don't get the marks they want, again, you can feel like a failure. And that could haunt someone their whole life, right? Their whole life.
So is it that the motivation of a teacher in the class could be helpful?
Of course. That's why Krishnamurti says the teacher has to be someone who has tremendous loving kindness. Has to be a good teacher, has to know their subject, obviously, but they have to create the right atmosphere for the student. What is the right atmosphere? In one sense, unconditional loving kindness, together with whatever else. You have to be firm and stuff. You can't let kids do whatever they want. But so that kindness, that appreciation, that's not going to come unless we've done the inner work, right? So that's why he says that he's written a whole book on educating the educator. He's saying that's the main thing. If the educator is qualified and so forth, then things go well. But if the educator themselves are deficient in kindness, in love, are themselves very competitive and hypocrites, basically, then how's that going to work? By hypocrite, I mean they could be saying one thing in class and doing something else. And they do say, don't they, that children often learn more from what they see than from what they hear. So if they see their teachers not behaving so well, or, whatever, talking in an abrupt fashion, that has more influence than what they're hearing in the classroom. Yeah. Ajirji, I hope you heard that. I'm sorry, people here have not studied theatrics and public speaking, so they often speak so softly, I can't hear them from 3 feet away. But I have to be careful, because someone actually chided me, an old friend chided me the other way for saying something unskillful and harsh, I think yesterday or on Sunday. I said to people, I hope you're not here for the entertainment or something. So I hope that didn't put off a lot of people. But an old friend of mine said, oh, that was not the Kabir I know. That was an unpleasant sensation for me when I read that email from this person. You can't unmute? Well, sorry. Yes. I need people to remind me to do everything. Sorry, अजय जी, अब आप फरमा सकते हैं. फरमाइए जनाब, कान खुले हैं हम लोगों के. जोर से बोल रहे हैं. जोर से बोलिएगा.
Yeah. You can hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, I think this comparing and the competition, which seems to be like a modern disease, particularly in the education field, is really very, very dangerous. I think one of the persons, they said that in competition, which is like a rat race,
like
even if you win,
Yeah.
even if you win the race, you will still continue to be a rat.
Yeah, if you win the race, a rat race, then you continue to be a rat. Yes.
I think that's a kind of the life we are orienting to the students.
Right.
And you talked about the Krishnamurti. I remember he also writing in one of his uh, uh, books, he says that the competition and the comparison is violence.
Is violence.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very deep way of really looking at that. I think, as you put it, in case the child is being compared, who is not doing well in the class, with someone who is doing well, there's a kind of a violence which is really being created in that student. I think it's a very, not a very good way of nurturing. I really want to share one story, which is a real story, particularly when we are really talking of the education in the classroom. I think this is one of the sessions that we were really having with the teachers. This is the mindfulness in the education. So there was a teacher from the American school in Delhi.
You hear?
In our circle group, circle sharing, she was sharing that. She said that once the parents of one of her students came and told her that their ward was not feeling comfortable in her class. So she felt a bit strange because she never got that impression. Having heard that, she said that the following day, when the class was over, he called the student and just kept on listening to her, to the boy for 20 minutes, mindful listening, very caring and very lovingly. And she said that she kept on saying, okay, 3-4 times. And she got the impression that the child felt that he was not receiving the attention of the teacher. The teacher was not attending to him. So next day onwards, she kept on patting the boy in the corridor, saying in the good morning, how are you? So after 6 months, she said that there was a great change in the student. This student was not doing well in her subject that she was teaching before, but after 6 months, there was a dramatic shift. The boy starting doing so well in the subject that she was really teaching. So she said that in case the student doesn't like the teacher, that student will not do well in the subject that she teaches. I thought that's a very wonderful way of really looking. As you said that, Krishnamurti saying that the teacher needs tremendous love and attention. I think that's really working out so well here. So I think, can the teacher feel that in case the student is not doing well, is there some subconsciously problem of relationship between the student and the teacher?
Okay. Just wanted to ask you something. Thank you,
Yeah.
Ajay. You were in the IAS. Was there, do you think, a lot of competitiveness in the IAS between officers in the government? Is there a lot of competitiveness? Was there and did it affect governance?
I think as the scale, because it's like a pyramid. Going up in the government is like a pyramid. As we keep on going up, the space becomes narrowed down. Then the competition really starts.
Acha.
You find that there's a factor of the cadre, who is from which cadre. Some places I have really found there's a subtle way of playing even the caste also. In a very subtle way, I think even there is the affiliation of the university also. Well, are you from the same university? So I think, yes, I would say that going up the ladder, when the space becomes narrow and narrow, at a very subtle level, the people become very competitive. And
Yeah.
in one way, quite silent way, very aggressive also.
Hmm. 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 Thank you. Thank you. It's your bedtime now. It's 12:30.
Yeah. It's a 1:30.
1:30. What time do you get up these days, Ajivji? What time do you get up tomorrow, maybe?
Definitely around 7.
Okay, that's not bad. Okay. Okay, it's almost 8 o'clock. We can have one more input. Anushri, you're there at Rishi Valley? Your name is there. Anything?
Yes, Kabirji. No, nothing.
Nothing? Okay. Thanks for joining. Tiaji, anything from your heavenly abode in Bodha, next to the great stupa in Nepal? I hope that might have been useful. Not PhD level, but I don't know, nitty gritty stuff, foundational stuff.
Definitely useful. Thank you. Nothing.
Thanks for joining. Neil, Neeta, Jitesh ji, Uttam Kumar ji, कैसे हैं? Nice to see you.
Namaste, Kabir ji.
Pranam, everybody.
Yeah, namaskar. Neeta ji, you had something?
No, I just wanted to say that it's always, you need to keep reminding yourself about, the meditation we did today. It's like bhul jate hain daily life mein if you don't keep on contemplating on these things every day. And the impressions are so deep and dark. I don't know. With some things they just fall off very easily, but for some, especially with some people, it's a little difficult.
Yeah, you're telling me. Yeah.
But thank you so much. It's always I love your sessions.
Good.
Very good reminder. Then very good, you put it so straightforwardly and very simply that it stays.
Enjoy it
Thank
while
you.
it lasts. Yeah, may not last. I might.
नहीं रह जाती हैं बातें तो फिर से सुनना फिर से करना पड़ता है, but yeah.
Yeah, one has good days and one has bad days. But yes, I think this is very basic and very useful meditation. Yeah. Good, let's dedicate now. So thanks to everybody online and at Tushita. And thank you, Desheshji. No need to call me master. I'm not your teacher or master. I don't feel like a master, I can tell you. Anyway, thank you. So we can dedicate that we begin to really, feel and practice this this kind of awareness around equanimity. And although we'll always have some people we feel closest to, and there'll always be people that we don't want to invite, for tea or home or to, into our intimate circle, but everybody, hopefully we can include within our circle of loving kindness and compassion, based on this knowledge that everybody wants to be happy, doesn't want to suffer. So anyway, may this form the foundation of a genuine generation of love and compassion together with wisdom. May we never be separated from these teachings of Lord Buddha. And may we always be able to May we never be separated from enlightened masters, teachers. May they have long and healthy lives, especially His Holiness Dalai Lama, Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche, all the other great Lama teachers around the world, men and women, who are benefiting sentient beings with authentic teachings and authentic example of their lives. And we should really aspire that we never be separated from these teachings, life to life. Yeah. May we have long and healthy lives and the opportunity to practice. May all the centers around the world that are teaching authentic paths have great success in spreading, helping people with the Dharma. May we be inspired by the Bodhisattva activities, the Bodhisattva path, and have tremendous trust in that path of cherishing others. And the foundation of healthy self-respect and self-love. So thank you very much, everyone. Take care. And our next session will be Thursday evening at 6:30. Good night to everyone. Good night, Ajirji. Get some sleep, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, happy birthday, Kabir ji.
Happy birthday. बहुत late हो गया birthday.
Happy birthday to you, Ajay. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Maybe it's your birthday, Ajirji. When is your birthday?
No. Mine is on 10th November.
Oh, okay. ठीक है. April में कुछ birthdays आने वाले हैं शायद. I think.
Birthday is on 8
Huh?
November.
Okay, everyone. Online. And now we can't share our gifts, our food with you, but the people still here at Tushita have a treat in store. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Bob, we have to